Being Lally. "Hello, Lally. Ready to go today?" the nurse asked cheerily. And Lally chatted with her as they went through the rigorous processes of rising from the bed into a sitting position, dangling her feet over the side, being facilitated into a wheelchair, and having her hair and clothes settled around her. It was an ordeal. Physically, mentally, and emotionally challenging. And Lally had to go through it every single day. So she slipped her helmet under her arm and strode boldly down the pit lane. Crowds lined the barricades and she high-fived, signed autographs and posed for selfies along the way. On that bright summer afternoon, she was hot in her driving gear. It was form-fitting and padded and designed to save her from fire and injury if her car crashed. Some of the men walked around with their suits unzipped or the top half dangling around their waist, but Lally never did. She caught up with her team, exchanged last-minute notes, and vaulted over the low side of the race car. She fitted herself into the restricted space sculpted to her contours. The steering wheel was maneuvered into place, effectively locking her into that beast of a car in a semi-lying down position, and the heavy helmet was fitted around her head. Wires and tubes were plugged in, and she heard the voices of her team in the pit control room distinctly in her ears. She sent out a return message and casually raised her hand in a thumbs up. "Good to go." A mechanic inserted a probe in the gearbox and pushed the starter button while somebody held a team umbrella over her head. When the engineers were satisfied with the diagnostics, they turned on the ignition and she gunned the powerful vehicle to her designated place on the grid. Crowds jammed the stands, shouting and cheering as the contestants drove up, revving their engines or zigzagging on the tarmac to heat the tires. She heard her name announced over the sound system and waved and peered through her helmet. She was in the big social space at the center, which was designated the living room, though most of them seemed to be eking out their days there doing quite the opposite. There was a table tennis table at the end for the more mobile residents. There were card tables, Scrabble tables, and jigsaw tables, caroms, chess, and checkers tables, at all of which others were gathered and occupied. But Lally's crumpled hands and feet couldn't manage any of it. It was endlessly and maddeningly frustrating. The nurse wheeled her to a gathering of similarly incapacitated residents to join them in some small chit-chat. Nothing stimulating ever came out of those chats, Lally rued. She gathered up her hair in both her hands and partially confined it in a high ponytail that swung like a pendulum behind her as she ran onto the stage, dressed in a striped tee and black tights, face painted white and black and lips an audacious red. White cotton gloves covered her hands and black rubber sneakers her feet. At center stage, she opened wide her arms and bowed, letting the audience welcome her with their enthusiastic applause. The theatre was tiered up to the rafters, yet every seat that she could see was filled. She smiled and waved and settled them down, awaiting the opening notes of her music. As they rang out, Lally slipped smoothly into her mime routine, gliding across the stage on fleet feet, waving her arms emphatically, punching home her performance. Her body thrilled in its lissom expressiveness, feeling her smallest gesture, her tiniest grimace go across the arc lights with confidence and certainty. She swiveled, crouched, danced and dallied across the vast floorboards. All in complete silence. The less sound she made on stage, the more the audience felt obliged to make, it seemed. She took her final bows humbly, gathering up in grateful armfuls the bouquets and flowers thrown at her. Her head buzzed with excitement. Somebody nudged her. "What do you think, Lally?" And she had to admit she'd gone off somewhere in her mind and lost the trend of the conversation. They were indulgent. They all did it from time to time. She vowed to herself to be more attentive. Soon it was time for lunch, the scene of inevitably more embarrassment and grievous humiliation for her. As always, their group was steered to the tables shrouded in thick plastic and joined by a few personal attenders. Everyone nodded at everyone and made polite remarks as they waited for the food trolleys to trundle around. The diamond bracelet winked on her delicate wrist as she reached for the water in a short-stemmed crystal glass. A pristine white cloth covered a table that stretched infinitely left and right. Down the center were cascading arrangements of crystal, candles and white flowers. Many armed chandeliers reigned above all this, shedding a golden glow. Along both sides of the table ranged the beau monde and the haute monde, the beautiful people, glossy-haired, bright-eyed and smooth-skinned, dripping silks and satins, plush furs and precious jewels. Before them, on the snowy damask, shone the richest tableware, fine china rimmed with silver, arrays of glasses for wines and water, and rafts of cutlery bearing the dull gleam of real silver, painstakingly polished and buffed. At each place setting was a silver card holder, and hers read Lally in sweeping black calligraphy. Lally gave her attention first to the gentleman on her right and then to the one on her left, both strangers to her. No one spoke of aches and pains and coughs, but rather of travel, the theatre and fine dining. They talked their way through the soup, the salad, the entree, and as the dessert was served, Lally realized she was quite exhausted with all that eating. The low hum of refined conversation in that elegant dining chamber dissolved into the metallic clash and clang of the dining room at the center, where residents struggled through their meal under harsh fluorescent lighting. She noticed she'd done quite well herself, though well was obviously a relative term. In her case, it meant she'd managed to clear her steel tray fairly reasonably, without too many indiscretions on that plastic sheeting or on the floor around her chair. Serene hands rolled Lally back to her room for a wash and a laborious climb back into bed. It had been an exhausting morning. A small rest, if not a nap, a quiet hour with her TV, a bit of reading, or more rarely, a visitor. But for the most part, her mind had successfully navigated her through the greatest challenges to her body for that day.